It is an ancient book of occultist lore said to give its greatest devotees control over the black arts. The dark holds every spell, invites terror. It is of a demonic god born. Welcome to episode 143 of the Campus Comics Cast, the Halloween edition for 2022. My name is Scott Reed, and I am joined on this haunting episode by
Mike Atchison
and Chad Schubert.
And of course, we are the official podcast for Muddy Monster Comics, located at 1422 Walnut Street in Murfreesboro, Illinois. And if you haven't been in the shop lately, be sure and check all of the Universal Monster goodness that exists there at Muddy Monster Comics. Lots of great stuff for the Halloween devotee to come in, browse, and pick up and share with those around them. So
we just got mummy figurines today.
Ooh, and I know there's been some Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and stuff on the shelf, a lot of creature stuff on the shelf for a while now. So lots and lots of cool stuff for the month of October if you haven't checked it out recently. So. Well, as we were going to record, just saw this article pop up from Variety. Says James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead DC Studios for Warner Brothers Discovery. So I don't know if that's something we should be scared of, but I don't know, maybe. So what are your guys' first impression of this announcement?
First impressions are there was only one direction to go currently, and that's up.
Okay.
You can agree or disagree on taste when it comes to James Gunn. I don't know much about Peter Safran other than the projects movies he's produced, etc. But James Gunn has had some actually quite a large degree of success. And I think he's enough of a fanboy of DC and Marvel that maybe something good can come out of this. I just think they needed somebody quickly before the whole wagon fell off, the wheels fell off of it.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, if we don't want to see like hyper realistic, grounded, dark, brooding things in the DC universe, which is kind of seems to be a general complaint to people sometimes, is like it's just a lot of dark in there. James Gunn is not going to bring that to the table. It's going to be bright. It's going to be colorful. There's going to be some jokes. You're going to see a little bit more of that side of things. And that Safran guy, he's produced Aquaman and the new one, Shazam, the sequel to Shazam, and he's also co-produced Suicide Squad and Peacemaker with James Gunn. So they've worked together on those two projects, and so it seems like they work well in producing that thing that they produce. So I guess if you like the James Gunn thing, I would like to see him touch Superman. I think that would be interesting, to see the more upbeat, happy. We've seen such a kind of angry Superman, it seems like, for so long, that to have a light and funny kind of Superman might be cool, as long as they treat him respectfully, obviously, in there. That would be interesting.
Well, I like the Superman that we've had for the most part from the last few movies, especially those helmed by Zack Snyder. So, but that being said, I'm actually kind of surprised by this announcement. I really, really thought, because we talked last episode, whenever they announced that Joe Quesada was kind of coming over to DC, I really, honest to goodness, thought that was just a little trial phase, get his feet wet, so that they could then invite him into the studio and kind of be the story guy behind it. I think I would be more confident with Joe Quesada heading the realm, of the DCEU. But James Gunn, I mean, between Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad, those are movies that I'm generally very positive about. Mm-hmm. So I feel like maybe we got a shot, but I don't want, I know you had mentioned about the darkness of the DC universe. I don't want to go completely Aquaman, moving forward with silliness. And there's a little bit of concern with that, especially when I look at the absurdity of some of the Peacemaker stuff. So, it's a tough call for me. So,
I think it's so much based on the character. I mean, with Aquaman, that's not the right character for that sort of flippant silliness, you know. But with Peacemaker, that was done with such an overt design of absurdity. I think it worked. It worked a lot better than Aquaman, and I tended to like Aquaman because I wanted to hang on to the parts that I liked, and it was only about a third of the movie. But you know, I hope there is some sense of prudence when it comes to not making every movie the same, yet making it appealing to lots of different audiences. You don't have to be mutually exclusive between dark and broody to, you know, jokey jokerama.
Well, what was the one guy? Is it Idris Elba's character in Suicide Squad?
Yeah, Bloodshot.
Yeah, I felt like he was treated. Yeah,
Bloodsport. Thank you.
Yeah, he was treated very like he wasn't a joke in there, and so it was like, okay, you can have that variety in those team shows, and he can, because it feels like all of the Guardians characters they're all having a circus. So to see him actually be able to handle and write a serious character in the midst of all that is like, okay, that is your you can give us some variety in that, which is good.
Yeah.
All right, so big question mark, obviously, with the DCU right now is the status of the Flash movie. So predictions, Mike Atchison, putting you on the spot. Will Gunn and Safran keep Miller as the Flash for the movie, or will he be replaced?
Based on his own experiences, I'm talking about Gunn, and his own experience with Redemption, I'd say it would still be on the calendar. I don't think, just basing it on what I know about him, I don't think it'll be scrapped unless there's more problems with lost his name. Ezra Miller. I started to say Idris Elba. Ezra Miller. Unless there's more issues with him, because he's definitely a little bit more of a liability. So they really need to get this movie out and get it over with so they can kind of start over that franchise.
Shad, your prediction.
Well, and I with them canning the Batgirl movie, it's like there's nothing safe. It seems like. And I don't see Ezra Miller backing down from their kind of stance of how they feel about what they've done. They don't seem interested in redemption for anything. And so I don't know that it will get better before it gets worse again. Something else is going to happen, you know? So that movie seems like it's destined to go down the drain at some point. And I'm not sure if it will. I agree with you, Mike. It's got to come out sooner, or otherwise something's going to blow up to where it's just gone completely.
All right. I think they've waited long enough. They're going to reshoot all of the Flash scenes with the new actor. Ezra Miller will not be in the film.
They're going to Joss Whedon it.
They're going to, so they're going to do something else with it, and hopefully they'll do a better job. Well, no, they're not going to rewrite. They're going to reshoot. So Joss Whedon rewrote. Right,
that's right.
Justice League. They're going to reshoot the movie they have because, as I understand it, it's been positively reviewed. Right, so the people who have seen it have been positive about it.
So the plot, the story is holding up all right. It's just this, there's
too much stigma associated with Ezra Miller in this thing. So I predict he will be replaced.
I think that's a good point. The point you made about it's been long enough without hearing anything that maybe this will be just let it die on the vine, and while it's dying, they're going ahead and planting a new actor in the ground.
And I think that's where they need to go. So, and of course, if he has jail time, well, I guess it doesn't matter for a movie that's already finished. But
goodness gracious,
All right. Well, that's a scary enough topic to talk about, but I guess we should go on with what we actually planned to talk about in this episode, which of course is it's Halloween month, right? So we're recording this October 25th. My gosh, it's only 6 days to Halloween. I didn't realize we were that close. But we're going to talk about the Werewolf by Night special on Disney Plus, and then we're going to talk about some Halloween horror type stories, horror comics, just to kind of tie in. And of course, have a CLZ Shake. So, all right, Shad, first impressions of Werewolf by Night.
I knew nothing about any of these characters going in, so I was the uninitiated audience to. I knew who Man Thing was. That was.
You mean
it.
Ted?
Yes. But other than that, it was just it was a really cool. I loved the Marvel presentation kind of card at the beginning of it, and just going into it felt like something different than anything else they've given us. The black and white, just the way that the story was set up without this. You didn't know a lot going into it, so whether you were a fan of it or not, you didn't know where this story specifically was going, and it still had this MCU lightness to it once you got into the relationship between Ted and Jack, and just them kind of working together to get out and becoming kind of an escape movie in the middle of everything, just a prison escape. But yeah, it was really cool, and I maybe we'll know more about these characters as we talk about it, but as of right now, I still don't know exactly who I saw. I just know that it was an entertaining piece of entertainment.
All right, Mike, what were your initial impressions of the show?
Well, the initial impressions was that it sort of forced me to compare it to other versions of the Wolfman or Werewolf, and it's been a long time since I've seen any of those shows or movies, but I thought it was very enjoyable, and I think probably more so for someone who, like Chad said, doesn't I just know next to nothing about the character or the concept or the Darkhold or but it's easy enough to pick up the way they presented it. I think 55 minutes was I was sort of torn on it, but I'll get into that when we talk a little bit more about details. But no, overall I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was I definitely needed some palate cleansing after Thor. I'm still bitter over that, and over the last episode of She-Hulk. Right, those two things together, I was really negative about Marvel. So it's nice to have something to view a little bit positive for the MCU. So it was definitely nice to get something of this quality and of this entertainment level. So, of course, we're going to talk about spoilers. So I just real quick synopsis of the episode or of the show. You just correct me anything or add anything that you want to. So basically, Ulysses Bloodstone, who is a monster hunter, dies. All right. So a group of hunters are gathered together in Bloodstone's home, including Lucy's Bloodstone's daughter, Elsa. Right. And basically, the Bloodstone, which is a item of power in the Marvel universe that gives the user some powers. It differs from the comic, I think, a little bit than what we see in the show, but it gives long life.
Made of Eternium, right?
Yeah. You're mixing up universes there. But they're going to have a hunt of a monster to gain this Bloodstone. So the winner of the hunt is going to get the Bloodstone and become Ulysses Bloodstone's replacement. So, and what we meet is now did they ever say Jack's last name? Was it just Jack? Did they ever say Jack Russell?
I don't know if they did.
I don't remember.
I think they had to, because I made a comment about that in my notes.
Well, there you go.
So they did. Yeah. I mean, when he introduced himself to her when they were locked in that crypt, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. So I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, so Jack Russell is there among this group of monster hunters, and he's basically, we come to find out that he's kind of he's a monster in with the monster hunters is what it ultimately comes to be, and he's actually there to free the monster that they are supposed to hunt, for the ability to gain the Bloodstone. So they get let loose in this maze to track down the monster. There were 4 other monster hunters.
Let's see.
3. Yep.
You had the very
we'll say the Scottish guy, the vampire looking one, the Asian, and Elsa Jack. I felt like there was one more.
Okay, yeah. The woman with the real gaunt face.
Yeah.
You said her?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. The black guy, the Asian guy.
Okay, there you go. That's what I was missing. Yeah. So there we go. Thank
the
you.
burly guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At first, I was wondering I don't know the actor who's going to play Blade by sight. I mean, I think somebody said it, but I was wondering. It's like, is that the same guy?
No,
I don't know.
No, he's
What's
he?
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. It would have been nice to have slipped him in here. Maybe he had to leave.
Green Book, wasn't it? Green Book.
Yeah.
Chad? Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, so Jack goes into the maze first. He wins a lot to actually enter in to try to free the monster, or quote unquote capture the monster, but he's actually there to free the monster. Mm-hmm. So they're all in the maze, interacting with each other, fighting with each other. Some of them get killed by the others. Elsa and Jack get trapped into a tomb, a vault, and basically they decide to work together to free the monster, who we learn, basically the monster's name is Ted. And of course, the monster is actually the Man-Thing. So everybody can insert all of their giant Man-Thing jokes here, or giant size.
Giant size.
Yeah, giant size Man-Thing jokes. So they never, ever call Ted Man-Thing. They just call him Ted. All right. So Ted actually is able to escape with Elsa and Jack's help. However, Elsa and Jack end up being captured. Whenever Jack touches the Bloodstone, it actually knocks him back because he's a monster and not able to come in contact with the Bloodstone. So they are captured, and during their captivity, Jack, because of the power of the Bloodstone, is turned into the werewolf by night, but they're able to fight and defeat their captives. Jack escapes. All right. And then Elsa, though, is left behind with Ulysses' wife, who is still alive, not Elsa's mother. But Elsa then is saved by Ted, and then Ted scampers off back into the wilderness, and then we get a nice little closing scene of Jack awakening up with Ted at a little fireside, and Ted gives him some coffee, and they chat. So and talk about going to get sushi. So
it's kind of like Han Solo and Chewbacca there in that last scene.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So what are the big moments that I kind of omitted from our story here? That's pretty decent synopsis of what we think happened.
Yeah. I think and these aren't moments you missed, but when he turns into the werewolf, the fact that it's an actual just like dude in a werewolf costume that you see, like those practical effects went a long way with me and looked really cool in black and white. Like, and even I know that that Ted was CGI in there, but he was originally a puppet they interacted with throughout it, and there was like a behind the scenes thing of the big like puppet of Man-Thing that they like interacted with when they were filming everything. But even like the CGI looked really cool in black and white. I didn't expect that to look that way, but it was a nice touch at the end when you got to see it in color and go, okay, it looks really good in color too.
The Wizard of Oz under the rainbow as the color bleeds in,
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was telling my wife about that. I said, "What movie does this remind you of, and why are they playing? Why are they playing this music?"
Yeah.
I think the plot was really nice and straightforward. It wasn't that complicated, but you didn't want it to be if it's only 53 minutes, 55 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely a love letter to the Universal Studio monsters. I'm sure Mike would have loved to comment on that. Maybe we still can get him on here to do that. One thing I thought was really cool at the very beginning, Shad, was the intro music. It was sort of, and I don't know music, but was that like a minor key version of the Marvel music at the beginning?
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah.
It was like a little off. I don't know how to describe it, but
and they added in the chants, as part of it as well.
Yeah.
And the screeches at the certain scenes. Yeah.
I just that was so well done. I think you come to know that it's not necessarily the werewolves. It's not Jack Russell's story, or at least not only his story. It's also Elsa's. And speaking of his name, I thought it was kind of funny. Not having read that comic at all, the name Jack Russell, a breed of a dog, which turns into a werewolf. I thought, okay, that must be 70s humor there by Roy Thomas. At first, I was a little disappointed that the werewolf's design wasn't more werewolfy, like as in the longer snout. But then I got to thinking,
More
well, maybe they're
American
trying.
Werewolf in London as opposed to.
Yes, that's my exact notes. An American Werewolf in London look is what I was thinking it would be, or maybe even that terrible Jack Nicholson movie Wolf. That was a little like in between the two, but I actually think, well, maybe they wanted you to see the humanity of the character underneath the fur on the face. You wanted when you look back at pictures of Lon Chaney in the Wolfman, it was basically just a furry face.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have a long prosthetic nose or snout. I thought Man Thing looked great, just like the comics. Ted, reminiscent of the Heap, which I didn't realize until I was looking up images and stuff, and the Heap came up like, oh, he had that long, what do you call it, a proboscis or whatever, the long snout looking thing, but instead of the three, it was just one. As far as what it reminded me of from my reading experience, I remember reading the 1980s book called Night Force by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan because of the whole, bringing all the monster hunters together, but it was done much better, really. And if I had to pick one favorite character, it was the Butler. I thought whoever played that role did a fantastic job. Oh, and also when they animated that corpse of Ulysses Bloodstone, I thought that was pretty cool.
Good. It felt like a ride, like what you would see at a ride, like a Disney park. The bad jokes and move animatronics moving back and forth. So it's almost like an homage to Haunted Mansion or something like that.
Yes.
I am going to say on the comment about the Werewolf by Night special effects, I think it's nice to not have so much CGI after watching so much CGI in She-Hulk to actually see the actor be able to use their own facial expressions and eye movements and be conveyed across the screen. I am all for it. That's like, I'll just go back to Star Wars. The first Star Wars movies always have a special place in my heart because it's real effects. You've already commented on that, Shad. Yeah. And when we go too much CGI, it just loses a little bit of its heart. So I dug the effect and the look, and it was true to the original version of the character in the comics. So I was all for it.
I wonder if we'll get more of these, like more of these special presentation kind of things.
Well, there is a Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, and I think there was a trailer actually even leaked or maybe released of that today. So we are going to at least have a Christmas special at some point. I don't know if there's an official release date on that, but I hope that at a minimum turn this into a yearly thing. I would love to have these every October. I think it'd be great.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this crazy series that we have. It doesn't have to build a universe. I mean, I know we've got the Blade movie obviously coming down eventually, but
well, to build that side of the Marvel Cinematic, to build the the occult side and the monster side, and just in small little bites that don't. If somebody just goes see Blade and hasn't seen all the other stuff, they're not going to be lost.
Right.
But if you take the time to go see it, you'll get a little bit more out of Blade, and hopefully they'll mention some of these characters and stuff in that, in that movie.
Was this time frame supposed to be current for this? Do you think? I mean, there are parts of it that felt kind of in a time, early 1900s. But then it also felt that it could be current, like, and maybe it's just a black and white part of it that threw me that direction. But
I would assume, based on the technology and the explosive device, that it's relatively current time.
Okay.
But you're right. That's about the only thing that says modern time in the entire show is the explosive. Everything else is there. Basically saying that this could be any time frame, and maybe they want that to be nebulous, but I think it's supposed to be relatively within a few years of where we're at in the Marvel Cinematic.
Yeah.
But that's an opinion, they don't say. And I was trying to come up with things to nitpick because I never nitpick about anything. And and I was like, it's kind of disappointing that we're having to kill off a character before you even meet the character in Ulysses Bloodstone. Just because they want to move to the legacy character and get to Elsa. But then I realized, if they really want to tell stories with Ulysses Bloodstone, next year when they do a special, they can go back 40 years and tell a Monster Hunter story with Ulysses Bloodstone if that's what they want to do. Yeah. But, they've got that option. So, I can't even really nitpick that. So
the only nitpick I have is that there wasn't enough time to learn more about the backstories of the other Monster Hunters. They all seem pretty interesting. I think both Jack and Elsa have histories that we need to know about, and that's just a sign of a good show, though. They got their hooks in you, and you're like left wanting more. So not really.
Yeah, I loved when who was it? The mom, the Verusa. I know, not the mom, the stepmom.
She was
at the very beginning when she's like introducing everybody and how many kills they have, and the Scottish guy's like toting that he's got like 50 something kills, and then they're like, and then here's Jack and he's got over 100.
Yeah. Well,
like, wait, who are you?
Kills. It was confirmed deaths. It was worded differently.
Worded,
Jack,
okay.
As if it implies that they knew that there was something going on with him. You know,
I agree.
It was just worded differently, but yeah.
Do you think one of the mounted heads was Dracula on the wall, like the Marvel Dracula?
Yeah.
No, none of the mounted heads looked to me like the version of the Draculas in the Marvel universe is very classic Dracula.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So no, but I meant to look up, like when Jack said that he tussled with the one before, who it was that he was referring to, and I didn't take the time to do that. I should have. Here's some. So it was Harriet Sansom Harris was Verusa Bloodstone, Al Hamacher as Billy Swan, Eugenie Bondurant as Azarel, Kirk R. Thatcher as Joven, Leonard Nam as Leorn, and Daniel J. Watts as Barossa were the monster hunters. So.
Little interesting bit of trivia is Roy Thomas was interviewed. I found this online that he said in this interview, Jack Russell's origin, which his then wife Jeannie and him had come up with, they wanted to call it I, Werewolf, but Stan Lee rechristened it to Werewolf by Night.
I guess they wanted to homage the I, Vampire.
I don't know. I, Vampire came out. That came around a lot later than I, Werewolf.
Was it a lot later?
I bet it was, because this is 1972.
House of Mystery. What issue was that?
I bet it was late 70s at the earliest.
First I, Vampire. Let's just see when that was.
It was when. Yeah. More like early 80s.
Not right. It says this first hit is February 1st, 2012. That is so wrong.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. that's not it. Oh man. Okay. Here we go. Let's go to the wiki page. Maybe it'll get.
I'm gonna go 10 years after. It's gonna be 1982 or something.
I think it's gonna be that much later. Oh, you are right on the money. House of Mystery between 1981 and 1983. So that was 290, March 1981. So I did not realize it was that much later.
If anything, I think I, Vampire I don't know who even created that character, but maybe they knew about the I, Werewolf that
J.M. DeTeus and Tom Sutton.
No, J.M. may have known that Roy wanted to call Werewolf by Night I, Werewolf, but yeah. Interesting.
So in the heads that we saw, I've got a list of creatures that they had spotted. So there is definitely a vampire in there. Vampire head on the wall. There's a Bigfoot / Sasquatch head on the wall. There is a set of mermaid heads. There's a demon head, and it's got there's a side by side with like a picture of a Werewolf by Night issue with the same kind of looking demon that they've got a head of. There's There's a reptilian head, and then there's a gremlin head. But not like the Gremlin movie.
And to think my wife won't let me hang up a deer head. What the
heck? I know. What's up with that?
Going back to I, Vampire, this is right here. J.M. DeMatteis pitched the series to editor Len Wein under the title Greenberg.
I wonder if that's the character's real name.
I don't know. Wein liked the concept, but rejected the title and suggested I, Vampire instead. So DeMatteis would later revive the title for his 1985 Marvel graphic novel, Greenberg the Vampire. So there you go.
I'll be done.
There were some nice little in that scene where Elsa's walking in, and they had all the paintings on the walls. I didn't notice this myself. This is something else that was pointed out to me. Like some of the paintings, one of them was an homage to Thor killing Gore, the cover.
Oh.
So when you look at some of those paintings, there are apparently some artwork ties in.
Oh, really?
Various covers and scenes from Marvel, not just even the cinematic, but from the comics. So yeah, that was a nice touch. So that shows a lot to me. Shows a lot of care.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to mention the scene where he wakes up at the end. He's in the little tent. He comes out, and what's he wearing? The black with the red underlying vampire cloak is what he puts on around himself. I just thought that was such a nice little touch, So, oh, I don't know. You guys got anything else to add about Werewolf by Night?
I don't think so.
No.
All right. Who wants to grade it first and set the bar?
Oh boy.
All right.
You can't. Yeah. You cannot affect everyone else's score.
Mm-hmm.
You can't not do it. It's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you guys go ahead.
I'm gonna go 9.2 near mint minus.
I'm
reasoning behind it.
Well, I'm very fine near mint, so I'm a 9.0 on this.
Okay.
I've watched it 3 times.
I've watched it twice. Yeah, it's really good.
I'm with Scott. I'm gonna go very fine near mint 9.0. I don't know why I can't go higher, but I just feel like maybe if it was a 2-hour, maybe a second episode, whatever, just to get more enjoyment, more of a good thing. But yeah, I'd say 9.0 is my score.
Well, I mean, that's still a solid score as long as you're consistent.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter.
Gosh,
you can judge it a 6 as long as you're consistently judging things of equal quality as 6. So then that works. My scale. So I kind of have it defined. If this was, well, of course I'm getting Aquaman on Blu-ray, but this is something I don't think they'll ever I don't know if they'll ever release this that you can buy it physical copy,
right.
But I did. It would absolutely go in my collection. So, all right. Well, who wants to talk about either a horror comic or a favorite horror comic or what you did? Atchison, you want to go first?
Yeah, we'll be here a while.
Okay, that's all right.
Mine's my pick is it's not that much. It's I got a few notes here. It's not a comic book. It's not even a comic book
what
series.
What kind of podcast do you think this is?
It's Mike Atchison does whatever he wants to do podcast, I guess. No, it's a run. It's a run of a set of horror stories within a comic series.
Okay.
So this is the Spectre run in Adventure Comics 431 through 440 from 1974, which was the Bronze Age version. And I could have. There's a couple other things I could have picked, a couple of low-hanging fruit, but I decided to go for something that maybe just resonated more for me as a kid, and this did. So these stories were all written or plotted by Joe Orlando, which had a real steeped history in horror comics. The scripts were by Michael Fleischer, and the art was by Jim Aparo, and probably the best work of Aparo's career. Frank Thorne and Ernie Chan, I think, each penciled an issue in the run. Now, the history of the Spectre is that he's been around since the Golden Age, but most of us remember him as the nearly omnipotent character he grew to be starting in the Silver Age. And I won't get into his specific powers because, well, there have been so many. I mentioned the omnipotence. So this guy is literally the right hand of the Presence, which is DC's version of God. And he served as both God's spirit of vengeance and spirit of redemption, depending on the era we were talking about. So he was created by Jerry Siegel. Sounds familiar to everyone, I'm sure. And Bernard Bailey in 1940, and he first appeared in More Fun Comics number 52. And he's got one of the better Golden Age origins out there. He was Detective Jim Corrigan and was murdered by gangsters who put him into a barrel and then filled it with cement and dropped him into like a lake or a river or something.
Hudson Bay.
Yeah, Hudson Bay. It could have been. No, Hudson Bay. No, not Hudson Bay. Maybe Hudson River. His spirit would not pass into heaven, which caused the Archangel Michael, or I've read it both ways, Archangel Michael or the Voice. Since he wouldn't go into heaven, they attached his soul to the spirit of vengeance, and he was sent back to Earth, where he continued his crime fighting as both Jim Corrigan and the Spectre. And the Spectre's MO, even back in the Golden Age, was to lay bloody vengeance against the murders, including his own. And he'd do it in grim and supernatural fashion. one of Corrigan's murders was even turned into a skeleton just by the Spectre touching him. So you fast forward to the Silver Age when Julie Schwartz and Murphy Anderson revived him in 1966. He appeared in a few Brave and the Bold comics and Showcase, and even got his own title, which lasted 10 issues. Same mission, but much bigger power set. I mean, if you think about some of those 60s comics, Scott, where he's like, he and this other demon are fighting over the earth, and they're like playing with it like it's a beach ball. That kind of gives you the scale of things there. But anyway, moving forward to what I liked and why I picked this series. In the 1970s, DC revived the Spectre again, this time in Adventure Comics, which was an anthology title, and it was my first exposure to the character. As a kid, I was amazed at the level of violence, but of course there was no blood. It was all, no red coloring or anything like that, so it passed muster with the Comics Code Authority. And the stories were controversially gruesome. Even when you read the letter pages, I went back and pulled out my issues, and it was controversial. Even I've got a quote here from comic historian Les Daniels, said the Spectre had a new lease on life after editor Joe Orlando was mugged and decided the world really needed a relentless superhero. So the character came back with a vengeance and quickly became a cause of controversy. Orlando plotted the series with Fleischer, like I said earlier, and they emphasized the gruesome fates of criminals who ran afoul of the Spectre. So summing it up, they really made him this way because Joe Orlando had just been mugged. And he's like, this is how he's going to address that internally and externally. So sometimes he would turn the evildoers into inanimate objects and then demolish them, and then sometimes they would be transformed to everything from broken glass to melting candles. So it was canceled with 3 scripts written, but not yet drawn. And then they were later published in a 4-issue miniseries that reprinted that entire 10-issue run and those additional 3 stories that had been unpublished at the time. So I think that what struck me about it, I could have, being a DC guy, there wasn't a whole lot of horror characters outside of maybe Swamp Thing, Phantom Stranger, and even those weren't so much. Maybe Swamp Thing, but he was more of a superhero kind of character, and Phantom Stranger was sort of like he was just a host to tell other stories. So all of those other House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Secrets of Haunted House, and all that, they were all just anthology titles that had they would have little stories in there that many of them were good, but they were retold many, many, many times. So I was probably going to go with the anatomy lesson in the Swamp Thing, but I thought, man, that too many people would predict that someone would pick that as their story. So I went with this. That's it.
Chad, what about you?
Nice. It was a toss up. I had a couple in my brain. But I settled on Witches, which is an Image book by Scott Snyder and Jock. And this came out originally in 2014 through 2015. And it ran for 6 issues. And it is essentially a story of a family who it's a mom and dad and their daughter who moved to this town in New Hampshire. And the daughter's involved in this. She's got a bully who just all of a sudden one day disappears, and everybody thinks that Sailor, the daughter, did something to her, and that's why she's no longer there. So that's not the case. And they move to a different town. She can't escape this rumor, and we find out that there are these creatures that live in the trees in the woods called witches. They are like witches, but it's spelled Wytches. And there's this whole process where the witches have been around forever. They're these ancient creatures with these long fingers, and they're all kind of like gnarly looking. And they live kind of underground in the roots of the trees. And just the way that Jock draw, this is when I fell in love with Jock's artwork, is like he specifically was trying out this different technique where he was layering, like doing the artwork and then layering this like these weird smeared like colors over the top of it, so it gave this just kind of almost mystical feel to things. And whether if it was dark scenes in the night, it was taken on differently than it was when it was bright daytime scenes. It's just a really cool approach to the artwork that I hadn't seen before with layering techniques. And so that was, I remember specifically reading like all the letters pages, and he was very into showing his process for creating, and here's what this layer looked like, and splitting everything out and giving you kind of the back kind of view of it all. So that was more than anything. I mean, Scott Snyder is a really good writer, and I find that, you know, there's sometimes where he sets up a story and it's very wordy and convoluted, and there's sometimes it's smaller and it feels good and concise. And this was that really well thought out synopsis. It was like American Vampire, really like his American Vampire is just a really just thought out, no kind of tricks to it, but really good story writing just to its core. And this is that same kind of vibe. But the kind of story throughout is that these witches get the townspeople to pledge victims, or pledge somebody that they can take and eat, or whatever they do with them, kill. And so there's just this whole story of it just in this nice little 6-issue. It has been optioned now for a TV series that Scott Snyder is in the writing staff for, and Jock's doing the storyboarding for. So there's a lot of their hands on with it. They did when they were doing the Image Plus magazine a few years back, they wrote a story. There was Here's Negan was the big like first like 2 or 3 pages in the back of everyone. When that got done, there was a witches story called Bad Egg that focused on the witch hunters that Sailor finds at the end of this story, focuses on them a little bit more. And then they're getting ready to start on, I guess, what they'll call volume 2. So the story is kind of picking up new again soon. So I'm going to have to reread this and kind of check it all out. There was actually the start of the new volume 2 or whatever comes out in tomorrow's Image Plus, or Image, I keep calling that Image Plus, the Image 30th anniversary anthology series. There's a 6-page story that kind of starts up volume 2 of Witches. So I think next year is when they will actually start putting it out. But it was just it's creepy. It's just a very eerie, and that's all. I think that's all Jock artwork. It's just like he's killing it on that. And I like the build up. It reminds me a little bit of the Something Is Killing the Children, like before Something That Is Killing the Children existed. Not that it's by any means taking it and running with it a different way, but there's Monster Hunter family in a way, but witch hunters, and then you've got these kids that are kind of involved in it in a way.
When did this come out, Shad?
It was 2014 when it came out, 2014-15 on it. And so yeah, I highly recommend that. I had a couple other ones that I'll just mention. Outcast, the book by Robert Kirkman, was a really cool run of like 50 issues of a really cool book. And then Harrow County, which I've read the first couple volumes of that Cullen Bunn book is really good, stands out. And then there's the Haints, yes.
The Haints.
And then Rat God, which is a Dark Horse book by Richard Corbin. And I love Richard Corbin's his art is just it's just weird, and he definitely has a vibe.
He was the heavy metal guy that just passed away a couple years ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I know this isn't a comic book, but your description of witches reminds me of The Witching Hour by Anne Rice, that novel.
I've never read that.
Oh gosh, it's really good. If you ever decide you want to read, out of all her works, I'd say it's even better than the Vampire Chronicles. You know, the Vampire Lestat and all that, Interview with the Vampire. Yep.
I'll check it out.
All right, I guess that leaves me. So, well, I cheated because I don't. Horror comics.
He's huffing. Did you hear that, Chad? He's like huffing and puffing.
What did you do? Black Stars Above as your?
Hey, that's what I should do.
You doubled up.
Yeah, no. I don't know that comic books are a great medium for horror.
It's difficult.
It's because you can't really scare somebody with a printed page. I mean, it's just not. It's like, oh gosh, there's a
Yeah.
werewolf leaping out at me. So I cheated. So instead of picking like a favorite horror story, because I really kind of thought about it, it's like, I thought my first thought was Injection, which was that Warren Ellis story, which is kind of like some myths from the British Isles that kind of come back through artificial intelligence, and it's kind of creepy and stuff like that. Thought, well, I've talked about that book before, so I said, you know what? It's been a long time since since we're talking about Werewolf by Night. It's been a long time since I read Marvel Spotlight #2. So what I did was just reread Marvel Spotlight #2, which is the first appearance of Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night. All right, and of course it is written by Jerry Conway. The artist is Michael Plug, who's probably best known for his Ghost Rider work, but this was just 3 issues prior to the first appearance of Ghost Rider. All right, so I feel like in this he's still kind of finding his legs. He's not the Michael Plug that you think of when you look at the cover of Ghost Rider, but the artwork is still really solid. Back from February of 1972. All right. Now, it's kind of weird. The actual printed page says that it was scripted by Jerry Conway, artist is Michael Plug, conceived and plotted by Roy and Jeannie Thomas. So they all had kind of a hand in the creation of this character. And really, it's not like it's an origin story. You basically, on the very first page, there's the Werewolf by Night, and he's basically, killing somebody who's trying to mug him. So you got a mugger walking down the street. So here we've got, even though he's a not mindless monster, so far he's just killing people who quote unquote deserve it, right? Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, he's early in his time as Werewolf by Night, not an origin story. He still has some mental capacity, but he's still struggling with the transformations and when they're going to happen and all that. And really, it's kind of weird is that we get this backstory where his mother is dying and he has a stepfather, kind of similar to what we saw on the Werewolf by Night special, except for on Elsa's side, right? And after the mother dies, basically the stepfather is going to try to give away basically their inheritance. So it just kind of goes to this story. A lot of it is him dealing with the stepfather. So, maybe only, half the book is actually about the Werewolf by Night, and the other half is dealing with, what's going on with his dying mother and what's going to happen to their estate and all that. And it's weird, like he fights a wolf, so that kind of, it's a werewolf fighting a wolf, and then the big quote unquote bad is this guy who has metal hands. So so it's just kind of a weird, I guess it's what you would kind of expect from the 1970s for a horror comic, because this is still a code approved book, though the code had been lightened up a little bit so that they could actually have occult things, after, because this I guess should be post the drug issues from An Amazing Spider-Man. So the code had lost kind of some of its, power, and we were able to get some, horror stories like this where we have werewolves and vampires and the like. So it was just kind of a nice little, walk down memory lane, and to see, just kind of reread this origin story, or first appearance of the Werewolf by Night, since we talked about the series or the show on Disney Plus. So I just took it for that.
I remember Dan Brown, one of our co-hosts from the past, he said he likes to listen to certain music when he's reading. Mm-hmm. And I normally don't do that because it's sort of distracting. Mm-hmm. But a horror comic is the one type of book I think a little background music, a little mood music is appropriate.
So, I love to listen to music when I read it. It can't have words, though. It has to be strictly instrumental. And it's usually like scores. So like if I'm reading a superhero book, I want to hear like the score to like Man of Steel or something. Like something that's going to kind of give me that same vibe on it.
Hey, okay, speaking of that, you guys laughed at me for just now watching Hancock. I watched it a couple weeks ago on the airplane. But the reason I watched it because I found a theme, one of the songs, instrumentals to it. It's called "The Moon and the Superhero." But look that up and play it, and that's the kind of soaring superhero music that you just are like, wow, man, it just makes you feel like you're flying right there with them. So I would like to listen to music if I had the time to actually find the right music to play with. But I think a horror book would be the one genre that it goes with well.
Just some eerie, just some background atmosphere kind of music.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, CLZ Shake. Here, I'll go first.
Oh yeah,
I got my phone ready. I'll shake it up here. See what we get here. Shake. Oh, big surprise!
Micronauts.
Okay.
You're gonna have to add some stuff.
Okay. Well, no. Well, we're doing our actual. Star Wars. Okay. Okay. Here's something I haven't gotten before. Here is the X-Files. All right. This is when it was briefly a DC comic.
Oh.
All right. So this is, I believe, post the Topps series, and after. So it was post Topps. You have the X-Files. I loved this show when it was on. I'm sure if I watched it again, it would not hold up. But so I just, you get those people at that time when I was thinking about X-Files, I was trying to be a completist.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up this, as soon as I saw this comic book, I picked it up. I don't think I have any of the rest of this series. And I probably only own this now because of that completist in me. It probably is something that next time I purge, probably won't be there any longer. Because I think I'm over that. But yeah, so this is X-Files #1 from July of 2008. So this is actually,
oh yeah,
oh my,
yeah. So it's not. I mean, it's 14 years old, but it would have been probably in one of the early collections that I bought off of somebody, and I decided to hang on to it for some reason. So
it's not contemporary with the show then.
No, it's well after the show. So yeah, the original Top series, I remember those issues being really, really good. I do not remember this issue at all. So that probably says a lot right there.
Right. Yeah. All right. Shake. What's this? Oh, free comic book day. For Star Wars, the High Republic, The Edge of Balance, Guardians Wills. This is when they did the manga of the High Republic, The Edge of Balance. It wasn't horrible. I know that I was really interested in getting a hold of it just in case it was like a first is going to be technically a first appearance of anything that was High Republic. Still could be. And I didn't mind it. I don't read a lot of manga generally, and I did pick up the full book of it and read it, and it was okay. I debated on buying the second volume. I have not yet to date bought the second volume of it though.
All right.
Like you. I see the white screen.
See it.
Yeah.
Okay. Warlord, Volume 1, number 48. It's the first appearance of Eric, Son of Thunder.
Oh, really?
I actually shook up a key issue. Well, it's not a gold key; it's a blue key. However, they have that set up. But released in 1981. This is back when DC was doing these 16-page inserts into a lot of their comics, like the first appearance of the new Teen Titans was in DC Comics Presents, etc.
Blue Devil, first appearance in Firestorm.
That's right, yeah, like Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew and like All-Star Squadron or something. But
there was like a He-Man 16-pager too, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was in. I don't know where that was, Superman or something, but
I don't remember.
Yeah, so this is past the. No, it wasn't. This was writer Roy Thomas. But still being penciled by Mike Grell. And it's, Warlord is one of those visual characters you enjoy. The stories may not always be good, but he's got a cool look to him, and he's in this fantasy world that's in the land of never setting sun. It's in the center of the earth. but I've got nearly a full run of it. But yeah, that Warlord number 48.
I wish I would have known you were missing a few issues because I just sold a complete set of the entire Warlord series, including the first issue special.
You would have just complained that I asked you to break the set up.
Yeah, that would have. Maybe that's why I didn't say anything about it.
I hate to even ask you anymore. I'm like, oh god, he's gonna kill me.
No. If I got a complete set, I'm not even mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Somebody wanted to reach out to you and get a hold of you. Where would they do that at?
The inbox is full, so the email might not come in very quickly, but it's m.atchison90@gmail.com.
And of course, Shad, before you say your out stuff, maybe you should say what we got on our next episode.
Absolutely. Episode 144, we are going to be covering Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the full 8-issue series. And we will also be covering Black Stars Above, the 5-issue series from Vault. And you can find me on Facebook at Shad Schubert. That's SHAAD SCHUBERT.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, BURGcomics.com, with links to my Facebook page, eBay store. My next and last convention appearance for the year is going to be on Saturday, November the 5th in Dyersburg, Tennessee. So if you happen to be within driving distance of that on that Saturday, stop by and say hi. And we'll be back soon with another episode.
Mike stretches. Oh, yeah, because it's going to be a long sit. I have a feeling if I stand up a few times. You know what? All right. Okay. It is an ancient book of occultist lore, said to give its greatest devotees control over the black arts. The dark holds every spell invites terror, and it is of a demonic godborn. Welcome to episode 143 of the Muddy... That's the wrong name of the podcast. God damn it, I almost made it. Man, you were right there. I was just right there. I was so close. I got to start thinking about Muddy Monster Comics and Campus Comics, and I screwed it up. So, all right, clack. All right.